Investors sent the stock down 20% intraday following the latest update and news of a second acquisition. So just give us a business update to sort of start out here.
Yeah, I'd say the business is the strongest it has ever been. I've been a public CEO for like 24 years now, and this is the 5th time we've come in, reported the business with really strong operating results, and then the stock drops. So I just tell our people, don't even look at the stock price. It's going to move around for a bunch of factors. Where we stay focused is building the long-term business. And every previous time it's recovered, and we're going to stick with that playbook. And if you look at where we're growing from some of our new investments, from counter drone and Fusus real-time crime centers and artificial intelligence, our bookings in those areas are up almost triple year over year. And then we just announced 2 new acquisitions that is our entry into the mission-critical voice space, which we think is going to be a huge opportunity over the next decade.
So what are you guys seeing that investors and analysts are not seeing? Because the narrative that you have and your tone doesn't necessarily match the reaction from the street.
Yeah, I mean, part of this, excuse me, was we did have a GAAP operating loss, a tiny one, but that's largely because we have this very unique stock incentive program we call the Exponential Stock Plan, and all of our employees participate. And when the stock does really well and we're hitting our operating targets, stock comp goes up. And so paradoxically, the better the operating business does, the more stock comp goes up. And that was the biggest mover. But if you look at the adjusted EBITDA, that if you take that noise out, we managed to turn in, we've got like 7 consecutive quarters, over 30% top line growth. And we turned in right at 25% or 24.9 adjusted EBITDA while maintaining the growth rate. And if you listen to our president, who used to be the head of sales, he's very close with the customer. He was pretty bullish on our conference call, telling people we think the 4th quarter is going to be a monster from a bookings perspective. So we're feeling really good.
All right, I want to come back to that monster for the 4th quarter in terms of bookings, but I want to say that, Rick, you get this. You've been a CEO for a long time. When you're kind of priced for perfection, investors can be like, well, wait a minute. Citizens, an investor there, Trevor Walsh, said the company had little room for error in its report and made investors concerns about valuations. Stock trades at 398 times current earnings or nearly 94 times future earnings. You've got a $47 billion market cap with projected 2025 earnings of $2.7 billion. So your price to sales, or at least in terms of your market expectations, I mean, there's a lot there that they expect everything to kind of just hit perfectly. There's also concerns about tariffs and the government shutdown. There's also concerns that you just did a second acquisition here less than 2 months after you did that agreement to acquire Prepared, which was an AI-powered emergency communications platform. So why is that valuation, or why is that, market cap versus sales justified?
Well, first, I'm probably going to get a note from my general counsel telling me not to use words like monster when talking about future performance. We're really confident.
I bet. Is your phone going off right now next to you?
Yeah, it probably is. But look, the core business is really strong. GAAP EPS is a really hard way to value the business, because I talked about, the stronger the operating business, the more GAAP EPS gets punished with stock compensation expense. So I think something like looking at a multiple of revenue is probably a little more like going to be a little more instructive. But look, yes, we are valued as a growing company that's got to continue to deliver. And we've been delivering. I think we've had, like I said, 7 quarters of over 30% growth. And it's our job as a management team to keep delivering on that. And, if the stock takes a breather, that's kind of outside our control. And I'm an optimist. It creates a great entry point for some of our long-term investors. And we're just going to keep chugging away, working on the business to make sure we keep growing. And those 2 new acquisitions, they're a big piece of it. We made a very strategic move to move into mission-critical voice. We think AI plus voice now is a very magical moment. And there's a lot of AI hype out there. But look, 10% of our core business bookings this year are going to be on our AI services. So we're really delivering value to our customers. And we see doing that in 911 call centers and then extending across, any sort of mission critical voice communication is going to be a huge business. And we found 2 very complementary businesses. Prepared allows us to go fast into any 911 call center. And then Carbine allows those customers to then go deep and get out of the business of running all the hardware and move their entire 911 infrastructure to the cloud. And those two together, we think, are like chocolate and peanut butter. It's going to be a great combo.
Well, I do want to ask you about those monster bookings for the fourth quarter. But having said that, tell us about, you said 10% of the bookings this year are going to be on AI services. You know, how much is still tasers? Like, give us an idea of what the business is today and kind of where you guys are positioning it, especially as you take on these acquisitions.
Got it. Well, I'm terrible at details, but I can tell you the Taser business it continues to grow, even though it is a fairly mature business in the U.S., where the real opportunity is our new Taser 10. For the first time, we have a weapon that some of our customers in Europe are saying is a better weapon for their officers than even a handgun. And if we can prove that out this winter, we'll be testing it above the Arctic Circle in heavy, cold conditions with heavy clothing, which is historically been our Achilles heel. If we succeed there, we could see Taser really become a driving force across Europe and the rest of the world outside of the U.S. So even though it's been our core business from the beginning, Taser, we think, could be the growth engine that pulls body cameras, drones, AI, and all our other services right along with it.